Self-love is the new sexy, the podcast devoted to helping you overcome life's most painful and stubborn challenges so you can feel great, have more energy, and live stress-free every day. To reach your full potential, simply work with the powerful spiritual principles that are readily accessible to everyone. It's easier than you think, and on today's show, W. Mark Watts is going to show you how starting with self-love is the key to joyously and harmoniously making that happen.
Hey everybody, it's W. Mark Watts. Hello, welcome, and thank you for hanging out with me for another episode of Self-Love is the New Sexy. And today's episode is entitled, This Too Shall Pass. This Too Shall Pass. And it's titled that way because I was asked this question today when I was talking with some folks, and they were asking me, how can I be so confident that we're going to get through the current climate situation? How is it that I am able to stay calm and continue to work and do the things that I do? And I told them, in short, this too shall pass. And I'm sure you've heard that before, but I want to give you a brief example in my life, and I want you to look at your life and see, identify the times when things have not looked very good for you, and then remove yourself from that time period, and then look back and say, so look back from where you are, and you realize that regardless of how bad things were at the time, you got through them and you moved to the other side. Now, there have been multiple times, and I'm not really proud to say that, but there have been numerous times in my life when things have been really dark for me and I've been able to overcome them. But I want to talk briefly about, and I promise I'm going to try and keep this still to my 10-minute to 15-minute format. So if I start to ramble, I will do my best to shut it down. But in short, I want to take it back to the last, recession, global recession, which was around 2008 when the banking industry tanked, which I was a part of. I worked in the mortgage industry. I was working in the mortgage industry at that time. And even though the market didn't tank until '08, it actually started going downhill pretty rapidly in '06. So I was working in the mortgage industry in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we started to see things go downhill, with less opportunities, closing fewer and fewer loans for several months on end, and we started to really understand what was going on. I had just prior to that, in 2005, moved out of my house, and my former spouse and I got a divorce in 2005. The month after I moved out, I lost my job, and so I struggled for several months there until working a part-time job, and then I found another job in the mortgage industry. So that's mid 2005. Started working there. Started rebuilding myself into 2006. Then the spring of 2006 is when we started noticing things taking a drastic shift downward, and there was no way to correct it. Summer or August of 2006, that company closed down, lost that job. So now I'm completely jobless in a banking city, and the mortgage industry is starting to tank, and people weren't quite sure if it was really going to tank or not. But in this city, no one was hiring, didn't know what to do. Ultimately, I moved to Atlanta, which, since they had various industries and the mortgage industry hadn't tanked there yet, got another job there. And I moved in with a good friend of mine in the short term, one of my college brothers. Shout out to Darren. We called him Double. It started working there. Could not get traction. That company shut down. And so now, at this time, early 2007, everyone realized that the mortgage industry was tanking. And then, of course, along with the mortgage industry and all the other hoopla that went along with it. You can do your research and find out what I mean by that. Ultimately tanked varying other industries, which put the global economy into a massive tailspin. So there were all types of layoffs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So now I'm caught up in that tailspin, and I cannot go back into the mortgage industry because there's no one hiring there anymore. So what do? So I start looking to switch industries. Fortunately, very fortunately, I was blessed in the spring of 2007 to get an interview in the telecommunications industry. I had some skill sets that would allow me to transition there. And so I was able to move into that industry. And then starting in May of 2007, really started to get back on my feet financially and professionally. So that period from roughly January of 2005 to May of 2007 was a very rocky and rough time period for me. I worked very hard to maintain, to do all that I could to stay afloat. And I have to admit that had it not been for the assistance of not only my brother Darren, but my brother Lewis and my aunt Betty and my sister Karen, who knows where I would have ended up. Now, and again, fortunately, I did have people that I knew, or that I maybe not knew, but prove that they had my back when I needed them, when I needed help, I needed assistance. And so even though it was very dark, very tough, I was very stressed, didn't really have answers, didn't know where the next check was coming from, didn't know what was becoming of my life, actually. You know, and when you are in a recession like that, where you are willing and able to work, but there's no work for you, what do? So, in short, you try everything, number one. You don't stop trying. Number two is you reach out for those who may be able to help you. Number three is you look to do something different than what you may have been doing in the past. So again, don't stop. Try everything, turn over every stone, every leaf. Reach out for help, because there are people out there that will help you, that are available. And there's multiple people. And then also look to do something different. So now, again, I want to keep this kind of short, but I did want to get my point across in terms of just how dire a situation I was in at that time, and then what happened and how did I get through. And so those are the same things that we have to apply now, and apply anytime that we really feel we're stuck or we're struggling and we need assistance and we're not sure where to go. So I want you also to think about, there are the times in your life when things haven't gone well, haven't gone the way that you had hoped that they would go. And understand that, yes, those periods will come. They may come. When they do, that doesn't give us a license to just let go, to give up. Because there are answers, there's assistance, and there's other things that we can do. So I just hope that through that brief lesson of my life, that you can now look at the times in your life and realize that, man, yes, I've been through X, Y, Z, or I've done it multiple times. And there became a point where I started to move through that period, that time, and things started to level out again for me. And I was able to get my footing and start over again. So if there's anything that you can take from this, is that, when things like this happen, when tough times come, we have to figure out how to start over again, I guess is the long and the short of what I'm trying to say is the question is, or the answer and the question is, what do I do now to start over? What do I do now to get to that next step? What do I do now to get through this week? What do I do now to get through this day? What do I do now to get through this hour? And when you start to ask that question, answers will start to appear. And again, leave no stone and no leaf unturned. We have to really be vigilant about it. And while we're busy doing that work, time passes, things start to shift, and we ultimately come out on the other side of it, which leads me to the title of this episode, This Too Shall Pass. But while the universe, the heavens, God, Spirit, the divine is doing what they do, we still have our task here right on the planet Earth to do as well. So we've got to keep moving. We got to keep working. We got to keep thinking. We got to keep doing and allow everything else to work itself out so that when that time comes for it to be over, it can be over for us. All right. Now, I feel like I'm about to get on my soapbox again, but this is a good place to stop. So take it from me. I've been through more ups and downs than I care to even really admit in my life. But thus far, I've come through all of them. And yes, they've been dark. Yes, they've been tough. Yes, they've lasted a lot longer in many cases than I would have liked them to have lasted. But that's neither here nor there. What it is what it is. And I just ask that you keep that in mind, that you've overcome so many things in your life. So think back on those times. Take pride in those times. Understand that, yeah, the wind's going to blow. Some days it's going to rain, maybe even snow, might hail. It might be dark, but the sun will come back out. The winds will die down. The rain will stop. The hail will go away. And that's when, we'll be back on our feet and moving on to the next lesson in preparation for the next storm that may come. And know and understand that regardless of what comes our way, you're built for this. We're built for this. We'll handle it. We'll accept the challenge and we'll rise above it and we'll get through it. That's all I have for you today. Thank you, as always, for hanging out with me. It's such a pleasure. Reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram, email, friends@wmarkwatts.com. Shoot me a line. Let me know how you're doing, what you're doing, and let me know if I can support you in any way, shape, or form. Be good. Talk with you all again soon now. Bye.
You've been listening to Self-Love is the New Sexy with W. Mark Watts. If you enjoyed today's show, be sure to tell a friend. Also, make sure you never miss an episode by subscribing to our show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, or wherever you listen to podcasts.